Welcome, I'm David, your home repair coach. Today we're going to continue teaching you how to repair wobbly dining room chairs. We're kind of assuming you've already watched the intro and jump in pretty quick here. We have fully disassembled this chair, really doing this the right way. And we are getting ready to put it all back together. I am going to start with the chair back laying down, because we want gravity to be working with us. We're a little crowded here, partly with the light and trying to have everything in front of the camera, but we'll make it work. I'm going to go ahead and get one of these orange wipes out, make sure they're handy. Word of warning, I didn't say it before, these are not that harsh, but you do want to test these a little bit before you start wiping chairs off, just in case you got a weak finish or something. Most of this newer stuff, some kind of pre-cat lacquer, it's pretty hardy. I haven't had any problem with it, but be aware of that. And so I know I've got everything laid out. If you're jumping into this before you start mixing, especially if you've got the shorter dry time stuff, make sure all your parts are there, all your tools are there, all your clamps are there, so you're not running back and forth in between. Make sure you know which parts are which, you're ready to go. Kind of a good rule of thumb for any glue up type stuff there. So I'm going to go ahead and one pump of the 105 resin, and we want to make sure the pump goes all the way down nice and smooth so we get the right mixture. Same thing with that one. Make sure we don't have any drippies, and I'm going to go ahead and set these off to the side so we are tight on space. One thing I don't know if I said this before, use little flux brushes for this stuff. Just get them from the plumbing section or wherever. They're perfect for all kinds of glue. Super cheap, so we can use them and throw them away. Might be better to have a little stir stick, or sometimes I'll use a beat up old screwdriver or something for mixing it, because sometimes these will shed bristles. But get it mixed up nice and good. You can use a paper plate, you can use a cup. Spreading it out a little bit like this, I think, does slow the dry time a tiny bit. But if you don't have a ton of it, it also makes it a little harder to get everything. The nice thing about those is with the cans and the pumps, if we need more, we just pump more in there. So as I said, chair down, we're going to kind of have gravity working with us. I'm going to start with this top one here. We're going to work the brush all the way in, and I'm putting it mostly in the hole. I'm not worried too much about this outside edge, because this is all mortise and tenon joinery, and I got these labeled from before, so that's actually left lower. I'll go ahead and do that one just to get that off the top of the pile there. And then should be just like, oh, but I gotta put a little bit of glue on the tenon too. We already put some into the mortise, now we're gonna put some into the tenon, or on the tenon. I'm gonna slide that in there. And I don't know if I said before, I have not done a lot of scraping and sanding and cleanup of these, because we are using the epoxy, which is very forgiving of, you know, it'll go right over the old glue as long as it's dry, as long as there's nothing loose or flaking. Plus, you know, you can kind of get a loose fit there if you do too much scraping and sanding, trying to get the old glue off. The epoxy is pretty forgiving of a loose fit, but it's nice having it nice and tight so everything goes back in exactly the way we had it apart. That's why we like to do that. So we're going to go around that, and then I've already put some in the mortise. Now this one was the one we decided to leave these cross pieces attached. So I'm going to go ahead and load up the end of that with glue real good there. And then same thing here, work a good bit of this epoxy in there. And you'd probably be fine just doing one surface, but I always like getting a little, any kind of glue I'm using, a little bit on both surfaces. really make sure everything is good. And get that going down in there. It's gonna need a little more messing around at some point, but that's not the end of the world. I've got, should be right, upper should be there. So we'll go ahead, pretty much same thing, and do a fair bit of glue. I would rather, I mean, you don't want to slop it everywhere, but I would definitely rather have a little much, have some squeezing out, than let these run dry. I'm going to work a bunch in here. These things use up a ton of glue. We got a pretty good bit of glue there. We got some in here. And then right lower. And you can see by having the back there, all the parts are mostly sitting in place without having to be clamped or anything else, so we're not juggling them. And every chair will be different. You might have to stop and think about the order of operations a little bit, but a lot of them are something like this. There's also some where the legs are just shot in the bottom. Those are also not too hard to get together. As far as order of operations or anything there, I'll show you some of those one of these days. So we'll get that in there, and then I will go ahead and take the front piece. I'm going to make this assembly here. Oh, I almost forgot. This is the one that I cracked a little bit. So this is a prime case for this little glue injector, if I can hang on to it. Actually didn't put a ton of material in there. I guess it's a pretty shallow layer. Okay, get a little bit up in there. And this might be nice to have another hand here, but I'm going to take a screwdriver and I'm going to open this very carefully, just a little bit. And even with a needle, that's such a tiny gap. Now I could have glued this ahead of time to really make sure we get it seated in there right and not be fighting that while I do the other part. But at the same time, if we do it all together, then there is a little bit less risk of, you know, gluing this up and making the mortise a little bit too tight for the other one, or glue squeeze out getting in the way. You know, if the glue goes inside that mortise there and hardens. So I'm leaving that there. Yeah, even with the injector, I wasn't able to get much down in there. I kind of worked it a little bit in with my finger. Just a very small hairline gap, and maybe I'll actually work it a little bit with this too. It'll make a little bit of a mess we'll have to wipe off, but will help get that down in there a little bit. And then front, and that was right, so it should be this side. Just load that up. And these ones too, the mortises are different sizes. There's only so many different ways you can put them back together. But again, label your parts when you take it off. Think through everything before you mix up your glue. Do it in sub-assemblies if you have to. You know, I mean, you could totally, well, it'd be harder to do it like this, but I mean, you could glue this and then, you know, glue or glue one side of that. There's different ways to do it. These chairs don't have too many parts, so I'm not going too crazy here. Go ahead and do that one. Put that together. Kind of, I got a bit on my hand from that crack there. Well, now I'm kind of going to put this all on as a unit. Get some glue in there. Get some glue worked down into that one good. So there. And we're going to go over here. I'm going to do the far side first, just so that I'm not reaching over wet epoxy here, but you can step around. If you're doing chairs for a while, you'll get stuff on yourself sooner or later, but it doesn't hurt to try to keep it nice and clean there. Work a bunch into the finger joints here. I'm going through this glue pretty fast, but also spread it out a little bit, which doesn't help us. But again, it does help the dry time a little bit. Not that it's critical with the 206, but if you're using the 205 packs, that can get you a little bit. These should already be coated pretty good. Oh, we're missing a block. That's why. But, so yeah, we'll do that second block in a minute. We'll add that after the fact. But this one over here, we'll get that ready to go. And we should be able to just drop this on here, though I'm sure it'll be a little bit of finagling and winding it up. And you can see we're dripping epoxy pretty good from here. So maybe we should start on this side quick before we make too much of a mess. That slid on there. And of course now we popped some of that. We popped that all the way off. That's unfortunate. And just a little bit of tapping down to get them started. Give this a quick wipe because there's a lot of goop coming out of there. Kind of getting to the edge of my drop cloth too. I don't want to make a mess on the carpet. I'll go ahead and stand this upright. Kind of make sure everything's looking good there. And then everything's should be pretty much in place there. I am going to take a mallet because that one that we were doing, that first little bit there, I'm sitting off a little bit. Pop that back in nice and tight. I'm not putting, I don't think I'm going to put any nails or anything in those. We got pressure from both sides. So I got my handy Bessie clamps I talked about earlier. They're whatever their heavy duty series bar is with a deeper thread, rubber handle, a little heavier bar on it, 24-inch. And apparently that rubber cap popped off again. And so this is actually another place where it's good to have some of these towels. Do real quick on that. We'll just fold that up because we really don't want metal on metal marking everything up. And I'm going to clamp this direction. I think there's a little more of the round on the chairs in the back. Maybe it doesn't matter, but we'll use that swivel to kind of... And these are so close together, I think I'm going to be fine putting the one clamp about midway between the upper and the lower there and pull those together. That was working fine on the other ones, but if you ever need to, you can always use two. This chair seems to be a little more stubborn about going back together, which is kind of interesting. So that one, I've started cranking that down pretty good, but I haven't pulled it all the way tight together yet. It's just kind of working in phases. You know, if you leave them too loose, then one of them will fall off while you're using the other one. But just kind of give everything a chance to pull together. Part of what I worry about is that sometimes you can get a situation where, like, that one is tight and the chair as a whole kind of twists a little bit, and then it doesn't want to come together as much. Plus, in general, just better to put pressure on things equally as you're assembling them, whether it's glue ups or tightening down doorknobs or whatever the case may be. I don't know why that one is so stubborn. Most of these joints have been pretty good. Okay, I'm gonna back this off a little bit. This is, you know, we shouldn't really have to tap that like that, but there we go. Starts drawing it together. And go back, tighten these down. Still not quite where I want it though. I'm gonna lower this clamp, try to put a little more of the force directly over. Unfortunately, I can't show it on the camera, but this lower bar here is not quite drawn all the way tight. Yeah. I think that might just be the way that is. I think the tenon must just be bottoming out before that little hairline gap is actually fully closed. I hope this video format is working okay. I'm still kind of figuring out the whole video side of this thing. Done plenty of chairs, but the video's new. So I'm gonna go back, put these equidistant, and I'm using these to pull them tight. Again, epoxy, not nearly as critical to get exactly the right clamping pressure, but we still want to make sure everything is snugged down while it's drying. Why are we rocking like that? Okay, there's like a... I think we got everything running at the right angle there. But I'm going to go ahead and set this down on the floor here. I think those legs... And I'm going to step off camera very briefly here. I'm going to just set this on a hard surface and see if there's a reason that this is sitting like that. Something seems funny with this thing. But it's gotta just be... Must just be the way that the clamp's pulling that up then. Because there's not really any way that those legs could actually be out of whack there, I don't think. This barely even needs anything across the top there. But we're going to go ahead and use this third clamp. Give that a little something. Snug that down. Yeah, see, just having that weight there, it seems like is flattening that out. Go back through with this because I take some of the bulk of this epoxy off. Let's see, all the joints are pretty good. And now we want to really wipe this up good, because once this epoxy dries, good luck getting it off there. You'll need a chisel or something to clean that out of there. I've got a pretty good light there. You can move your chair into the light while you're working. Take out the light on your phone and rake it across. Oh, I almost forgot to put the cross braces back in there. I'm gonna put those in here quick before we do all of our cleaning. So 2, one over there. Okay, that was a little too much epoxy then. Dripping a bit. Fortunately, and I should have put these in, I think, before we clamped it, but even then these only go so tight. Again, epoxy doesn't need a lot of clamping force, and especially when we get a 3-part finger joint like that, there is a lot of clamping surface area there, so we should be all right. So, let's see here. Make sure we get that. As you can see, the rubber mallet, well worth having. And if we are doing most of the work, even with the disassembly with the clamps, very good to have that. So now we'll clean that up, drip some down on that leg there, get that off, and then I'm going to actually try going back through, because with the wet towels, there's a little bit of a shine from that. Makes it a little hard to tell if you've got that, if you're seeing epoxy residue, or if it's just wet still. If there's any doubt, go over it a few times. Especially with epoxy. And I have lots of working time with the 105 and 206, but keep this in mind if you're working with the 205 packets or anything. If it does start setting, on you, I really want to stop, glue together whatever you have ready, and get a wipe top quickly. I think we should be pretty good. About ready to just leave this one here. I'm going to go over it one more time to really be sure here. And then the seat, there's a couple little tricks to fill in the holes on the seats and where the screws have kind of wobbled out. So I'm going to do that as a separate video, hopefully a little shorter one. Show you guys that whole deal. As I think I'm already running a little long on the videos here. Again, figuring out the whole video process. But at the same time, this is kind of it takes time to do this stuff, especially if you're going to do it correctly. And I don't want to tell people it takes 2 minutes and super easy by over-editing my videos. So hopefully that's helpful for you guys. That should do it for this phase. Calling that gut on the glue up. Checked everything's tight. We've checked all the glue is taken off of there. So I'll wrap this one up, and I will see you guys back here for the final section. Well, the next one we'll be putting that on, and then we'll jump on to some other types of chairs and lots of other videos in the future there. Thank you for watching. This was helpful. Please like and subscribe. I am David, your home repair coach, and we'll see you guys soon.